to episode 34 of Did You Bring the Hummus podcast. I'm Kimberly, your host, and I'm super excited to be here with you today. Did You Bring the Hummus is a podcast to help you go vegan. This season, I'm sharing new episodes every Monday discussing all things vegan. Most importantly, we'll talk about how to embrace this meaningful decision with fervor and fun. Episodes post every Monday on your favorite podcast app. Before we get started, I have one very important question for you. Did you bring the hummus? Today, I am joined by Brigitte Gemme of Vegan Family Kitchen. Brigitte is passionate about helping more people eat more plants, even if they will never go vegan. Though she used to love rare steak and blue cheese, she started cooking plant-based food in 2013 to reduce her environmental footprint and went vegan in 2015 for ethical reasons. Today, she is energized by the possibility of improving people's health and vitality by empowering them to cook really good food. Brigitte offers meal planning services, online cooking workshops, and a cooking club on her website, Vegan Family Kitchen. She's the author of the book, Flow in the Kitchen, Practices for Healthy, Stress-Free Vegan Cooking. Brigitte has a PhD in Educational Studies from the University of British Columbia and a certificate in Plant-Based Nutrition from the University of Winchester. She lives in Vancouver, Canada, with her husband and 2 children. This episode is full of helpful nuggets. Brigitte is super quotable. Insight, inspiration, and practical life tips. You don't want to miss a moment of it. Let's get to it. Hey, Brigitte, thanks for being here with me today.
I'm super excited to be here. Nice to see you.
So, there's so many things I want to ask you about, but I like to start with your vegan journey. So tell us how you got to be the Vegan Family Kitchen, how you got to be vegan, all the good things.
Wow. It's a long story, but I'll keep it short as much as I can. My grandfather was a dairy farmer. My father took over the farm after my grandfather passed. And the funny thing is, my father really was an animal lover. Every time when I created this family album after my father passed away, I had like pages of pictures of my dad trying to communicate with animals, like trying to talk to a goose, and trying to, feed a hummingbird in his hands. And he really loved animals. And I think deep down in him, there was something that didn't sit right about having the cows. And also, he became afraid of them. I think there was like a neighbor that was trampled by his cows or something, and he started to see it as very dangerous. And then we had pigs, and I'm sure it wasn't sitting very well with him, although he ate ham until the end of his life. I think he didn't like that very much, and it felt dangerous. And my parents thankfully had a plant nursery after that. But for me, animals were always there for work and for eating my whole life until I was in my 30s. At the same time, I defined myself as more or less an environmentalist. When I was in elementary school in the 80s, recycling became a thing, and it was a bit of a cult of, we had these big events where we recycled all the paper in the school, and it was a big identity thing. And when I moved into the big city later on, I was always walking. I never wanted to have a car. I was cycling everywhere. And I really saw myself as a good green citizen until sometime around 10, not quite 10 years ago. I was in this, big online conversation with some kind of stranger. And they told me, well, if you're riding your bike, but you're fueling your body with steak, and God knows I loved steak at the time. I love my steak blue with blue cheese on top, rare. If you're fueling your body, you're cycling with steak, you might as well be driving a Hummer.
Mm.
And that really punched me in the stomach. It was like, whoa, wait a minute. And I'm someone who thinks deeply about certain things. And that comment really stayed with me. I don't know what I told the guy, but I want to thank that stranger today for bringing to my awareness this idea that the food we eat has an environmental footprint. Like I had never thought about that before. It was really not on my radar. And I started thinking about it. There were a couple books I read at the same time, and that got me into this idea that, well, I got to take one for the team. Not many people are doing this, but obviously the environmental footprint of meat is kind of a lot. So I'm going to be vegan at home, and then I'll be vegetarian outside, because even though we lived in California at the time, it was hard to get a vegan meal at a restaurant.
Mm.
And if I visit my in-laws or something, I'll eat whatever they feed me. And over that period of time, I had a young child. My daughter was about 18 months. I became pregnant with my second child, and when he was born, I was pretty deep into I read a lot. I was reading all these books about the environmental aspects of animal agriculture, and then you kind of start dipping into ethics because you realize, well, I don't actually need to eat this. Like, I'm not eating a ton of meat and I'm still feeling fine. And I was learning about nutrition. And so I was learning more. And I remember after my son was born, it was in the, probably at 3 in the morning because my kids never slept. And I was nursing my son. I was breastfeeding him, right? And this image came to me of, what if somebody came and took my baby,
Mm.
like out of my arms and like took my milk and, put the baby away and eventually, who knows what. And that thought was so disturbing and so profound that the next morning I was like, that's it. I'm going to be vegan from now on. I was quite pretty much there, but I was
Mhm.
still conflict averse, and I was occasionally eating meat, occasionally eating cheese and things like that. And I was like, no, I can't do this anymore. That's not right. That's not fair. And that's when I formally became vegan. And as I kind of fuel on accountability in so many ways. I tell people I'm going to do something. And at the time I was pivoting my career, I was already thinking I'm going to do something different than academic research. I'm going to start this little business. It will be about environmental footprint reduction. And I decided to call it vegan. At the time, it was not called Vegan Family Kitchen, but it had vegan in the title. And that was partly my way of keeping my feet to the fire.
Mm.
Like, if I'm calling myself vegan publicly, it's my domain name, I'm not going
Yeah.
to be seen anywhere ever, eating fish or cheese or whatever. And it's not that my ethical commitment wasn't uh, significant, but I think when you have especially young children, you're always in kind of a conflict, right? There's always so many things going on. I was like, well, if I call myself vegan and everybody knows I'm the vegan, whatever, I'll have to be vegan and I'll live by it. And that's
Mhm.
how it started for me. I mean, it was not exactly that close in time, but that's the compressed version of it.
Okay, that is awesome. That's quite a story. So you mentioned your educational background, and you have this focus on, or you had a focus on the environment there as well, right? And so, can you tell us a little bit about what you understand as far as the environment is concerned when we are using animals the way that we do right now?
Yeah, there's a few things that I think everybody who's vegan or wants to be vegan or is thinking about being vegan knows, about the significant footprint of meat and dairy to some extent and all those things. But to me, there's something that became more significant in recent years. So just for background, my background, I'm not a scientist or an engineer. I'm a sociologist of science and engineering. So some people study ants, some people study history. Well, I studied scientists. I was sticking around with
Mm.
them. And that led me to a career in research management. So I was the person who was helping scientists get grants. And once they had grants, make sure that they use it the right way and stuff. And I was at the time working at the beginning of my new career, I was working with clean energy research. And that got me into situations where I had to write position papers and white papers and, arguments in favor of funding clean energy research, right? Because I wanted my researchers to get all the money that they needed to do the research they wanted to do about batteries, about
Mm.
carbon capture. And at this, I was again reading deeply into these issues and realizing what we're doing here is lovely, but it's not going to take us anywhere near where we need to go anytime soon. I mean,
Mhm.
those are great innovations, but even if we keep accelerating the pace of battery development, for example, it's not going to make the kind of dent that we need in our carbon emissions and our methane emissions to undo to start scratching the surface of what 8 billion people on Earth are
Mhm.
consuming in terms of resources. Whereas if we change the way we eat, and that's something we can do not instantly at the scale of the planet, and not everybody on the planet can do it, but it has the potential of having a much bigger impact a lot faster because of the methane issue, right? Because methane is such a more powerful greenhouse gas. And that was one of my first way of thinking about this is like, that's the low hanging fruit. That's the one thing we
Mm.
can do. Electrifying transportation tomorrow is very difficult. The
Yeah.
grid, the electric grid that carries the power around us, among other things, the capacity of batteries, all those things are big limitations. But, eating meat, we don't need it. Actually, we feel better when we don't.
Mhm.
And that's the second point that I came to realize more recently, maybe in the last couple of years, as I'm thinking more about chronic disease. My husband is a physician and I manage his practice, and I receive all the emails from the local doctor association, every day, whatever is in the news about medicine and things like that. I
Mhm.
get those emails. And I keep getting those emails that say, uh, things about the capacity of the medical system, all of those cases of Alzheimer's disease and other dementias, and all of those cases of diabetes. This is going
Mm.
to cost, I don't know, I'm making numbers up completely out of the left field, $50 trillion, and there's the human cost. My father sadly passed away from Alzheimer's disease, and my mother was his caregiver for many years, and the human cost of that
Mm.
is heart-wrenching. It's really awful. And the reality is that about a third of the budget of a country like Canada goes to healthcare.
Hmm.
That's a lot of money.
Yeah.
In the United States, it's a little bit more complicated to do that accounting, but let's imagine it's about the same because that third of the Canadian budget, it's only the government money, right? But obviously,
Right.
when somebody suffers from dementia or diabetes or all those things, there's a lot of private costs as well that are not counted in that figure. So it's about 30%.
Mhm.
And that money that we have to pay for healthcare, it's increasing every year. And as it increases, the government needs to keep chasing revenue. That means
Mm.
taxes, right, from individuals and corporations. To get taxes from corporations and individuals, they need economic growth. And that is what is destroying the planet. Every time we create a widget, a computer, a coffee mug for that matter, all the resources we extract from the earth to create stuff, that's how governments make money because they tax, at every step of the way. They tax people's salaries, they get money that way, and that's how we pay for roads, that's how we pay for schools. That's great, but we also have to pay for the costs of the healthcare system, which are exploding and will do nothing but get worse because everybody is sick. Why are they sick? They're getting sick because they're eating too much meat, not enough fiber,
Mhm.
too few vegetables and fruit. I mean, your mom was right, not enough beans. Who's eating 1.5 cup of beans outside per day outside of vegans? No one.
Right.
And that's what we all need to do. And if we did those things, then there would be fewer million people getting dementia, diabetes, heart disease, costing cancer, costing so much money to the healthcare system. And we would be under far less pressure to make money, to destroy the planet, to pay
Mhm.
for that.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, that's a long chain of
No.
reasoning, but I get so frustrated that nobody is talking about that. And
Mhm.
when I keep reading those articles, from the doctor's newsletter that say, the capacity of the hospitals and the capacity of the system, not enough doctors, not enough nurses. No, no, no. The problem is that there's too many blessed sick people. That's the
Yeah.
problem. It's not that there's not enough doctors. We have a lot of doctors. We spend a lot of money on healthcare. That's not the problem. The problem is that we have too many sick people. And when are we going to start doing something about that? And
Mhm.
that got me really motivated in these last few years to really push the envelope on helping people eat in a healthier manner that is better for them, better for the animals, better for the planet in more ways than we imagine.
Yeah. Thank you for that because that is such a clear and concise, even though you felt like you spoke for a while, a clear and concise reason for people to stop and look at what they are doing, what they're eating each day, and how they are contributing to not just the decline of their own health, but the overall decline of the planet we live on. And so, yeah, thank you for that.
And I mean, it's really painful to think about this. So most of the time we don't like to think about it.
Mhm.
And as much as everybody else, I love a vegan donut. There's nothing that brings me more joy than knowing that now there's a,
So good.
vegan donut shop really close to me. The sad thing is that vegan donuts, even if they're vegan, they're great for the animals, but they're not great for my health
Mhm.
necessarily. Vegan cheese is awesome. Well, I don't actually like vegan cheese, but let's say a lot of people like it. So those are all lovely things. I rejoice at the availability of vegan processed food because it is a shortcut that allows to save animals. But yeah, at the end of the day, I think the battle has to be at home.
Mhm.
We need to cook more of our own meals. We need to slow down if needed to make that
Yeah.
possible. And that also, by the way, will help with the destruction of the planet because when we
Mhm.
slow down, we're using fewer resources, we're burning less fuel, quite
Right.
literally.
Yeah. So that is a perfect segue into this lovely book I have in my hand, Flow in the Kitchen: Practices for Healthy, Stress-Free Vegan Cooking. That is your book, and I'm not just saying this because you are in front of me. I love this book. I just finished it the other day, and I've already put it into practice. And so I'll let you talk about it, but I just want to share with you my experience so far. Is I have been working on batch cooking more often because I find that between work during the day and then trying to do other things at night for my business, that I start out with really good intentions, and I'll
Who
make
doesn't?
right? I'll make a big batch of rice and, like, chop up some vegetables, and I tell myself, "Okay, I know what I'm going to eat for the week. I've got the basics, the base of all my bowls or whatever ready to go, overnight oats in the fridge. I'm good." But then what happens is life happens and work is way too busy. I don't have time to actually heat up anything like the frozen broccoli that I thought I was going to have on my bowl for lunch. And so then, I'm like, I'm stuck on a call. So, oh, we'll just order takeout. And then it spirals. But what I did this past weekend is I took the advice in your book. And when I made my meal plan, I didn't just think about what sounds good this week or what's available at the grocery store. I also thought about, what do I have going on? And I looked at the nights where I was going to be busier than other nights, and I made sure that those nights were literally heating up something that was a leftover from another day. So there was no cooking on those nights. And when I did cook, there was a flow. I was able to be focused because I knew exactly how much time I had. I knew exactly what I was making, and it just felt good. And one of the things you say in the book is, I don't have to do this, I get to do this. What a shift. A great reframe for those of us who may feel resentful or just like, I why do I have to do this? There are people out there cooking food, can't I just have it delivered? But like, and to quote you again, they're not cooking that with love the way you would cook it for love, because you love the people that you're feeding. So you're nourishing yourself, you're nourishing those in your household. And that comes through when we take that time and slow down and really get engaged.
Yeah. Amen, sister. This is so powerful. And the empowerment, right? The capacity to feed yourself. And I think in one or two short generations, I will say two generations, we have really forgotten in
Mhm.
so many ways, neglected, dismissed the value of home cooked meals.
Yeah.
And I'm not judging the people who cook the food in restaurants. I actually know some vegans who have some kind of meal service that they provide for others, and I know some of them who really put a lot of love in the food they cook for their clients. The reality, however, is that the vast majority of the food that is, let's call it convenience food delivered, whichever way,
Mhm.
is served by large food conglomerates or companies that work for them or companies that depend on them that have to use those ingredients. and they're businesses with a very sharp eye on the bottom line.
Mhm.
And their business is not to make anybody happy unless it's going to make them happy in a way that it gets them to order again.
Right.
And that's not love. And most of the people who work in the food industry are underpaid, are not treated very well. And goodness gracious, I wish there's going to be better job opportunities for them. I'm not worried that my book is going to collapse the market and there's going to be plenty of restaurant jobs for a while still. But when we do take that capacity into our own two hands to feed ourselves, it's a game changer. And I mean, I don't know the meals you've been making for yourself, but sometimes, on a Friday night, two kids, tired, there's been a lot of bickering, things didn't go well in the week, whatever happened. And I'm like, oh, I'm sick of all this. And I actually have a meal plan. I have building blocks in my fridge. And despite all that, I am not immune to the temptation of ordering something out. And often that something is going to be something like noodles.
Mhm.
And then I have a vision of this other time when we ordered noodles, and there were lots of noodles. They were all right. The sauce had a lot of ketchup in it. Okay.
Mhm.
And there were like two pieces of broccoli. And I think my husband and I might have fought about the three pieces of tofu, there's an expression in Chinese. I can't remember how to say it in Chinese, but it says, don't touch my tofu. And it's so true. It's actually about romantic, like don't touch my girlfriend kind of thing.
Mhm.
But no, don't touch my tofu. For me, it's literal. And that's not cool. If I make the noodles, first of all, it's going to be faster
Mhm.
than if I order them in, and they're not going to be like all glued together as they will be if I order them in. There's going to be 5 times the amount of vegetable because it's Friday night and there's always leftover vegetables in my fridge and I can use them. There's going to be a lot of nutrients in the sauce. I can make a sauce with, I don't know, like some kind of nuts and ginger that will help me with muscle soreness, and garlic that will help me with cancer fighting, and all those other good spices in it that will be delicious. And there will be a lot of tofu.
Mhm.
So, I'd much rather do it at home than and it's not that the people at the Thai restaurant don't love me. It's not the reason why they're not putting in, enough
Right.
tofu for my taste. But frankly, I love me more.
Mhm. That's a really good point. Because some people will say, and I feel this way sometimes too, is that when you are the cook and the main cook in the house, sometimes you just want someone else to cook for you. And that can be self-care as well, right?
Yes, yes, yes.
So when I feel that way, I try to make it where maybe we could go out and have it be an experience, and maybe not just like a takeaway place where the food will be okay, but where maybe I can really feel cared for because like I'm comfortable and it's my surroundings are nicer, and then it feels like I'm serving myself in a different way.
It's like
uh
fast fashion, right?
yeah.
Fast fashion, like the garments are made cheaply, the seams will not hold for
Mhm.
more than, a couple dozen washes. The people that make the food and the clothing in fast fashion are treated really badly. Well, fast food, which is what, again, we end up eating most of the time if we're eating out, is similar.
Yeah.
And if we instead, as you say, I love this idea that you make it an experience and you pick a small local restaurant where you know that they care, where they maybe know your name, a
Mhm.
restaurant that might be owned by vegans, and then the
Yeah.
the money stays in a more ethical
Mhm.
context. Maybe they're donating to sanctuaries or vegan charities or who knows. But that feels good and it is special because the
Right.
truth is that when I do order those noodles, and I'm not immune to that, on occasion when we order the noodles or the pizza or whatever it is, we kind of think of it as before it happens, like, noodles or pizza, right? Then it
Yeah.
comes and it's practically always disappointing. Like,
Yes.
yeah, it's all right. And then there's this idea also that, oh, I don't want to eat always the same thing at home. I always cook the same tree thing. And I have a few coaching clients that I coach one on one on this digital coaching platform called coach.me. And those people are trying to eat more vegan home cooked food, right? And I know what they order when they order out, and it's always the same thing, and
Yep.
I know it because I do the same. If I order, like, my husband and I look at each other and there's these 3 options.
Hmm.
It's not like we go wild and eat from all the cuisines of the world, no way.
Right.
Like, we eat the same. I don't wanna say the same crap, it's not the same crap, it's not bad, but we could do better, frankly.
Hmm.
So, yes, make it an experience, it's okay, and
Yeah.
and get other people to cook. I'm not really good at for a while, like, there was almost a year during the worst of the pandemic when my husband was cooking once a week,
Mm.
and that was great, and he's not a bad cook. He takes a long time, but he makes good food. He judges himself too harshly, but the food is really delicious. But then it means I need to coordinate with him, and I
Mm.
need to make sure that there's the ingredients he needs and this and that, and I'm not really good at making that effort. I think if I did it more, it would be empowering for him to
Mhm.
cook more at home as well, instead of just having me make meals appear on the table like the dinner fairy. So that's also an option for the person who feels a little bit bitter or resentful about always cooking. Well, there's other people that maybe would like to cook, but maybe we're keeping them out of the kitchen.
Right. Yeah, I have been guilty of that in my own way too, because, my husband, when he does cook, he does a great job, and it's always been really delicious, but it usually is most successful if he's doing it because I'm doing something else. I have a doctor's appointment or I have a podcast recording, um, and he knows that he'll be alone in the kitchen because
Yep.
I sometimes can't stop myself. I'll go in there and I'm kind of watching what he's doing, and I'm like, "Oh, wait, you didn't chop that finely enough," or "What? Don't throw that in yet. It'll cook too quickly."
Like, I think, the rule I try to go by if, he's cooking, my husband, is do not intervene unless the smoke alarm goes off.
Mm.
And I have to say there was that one time where I triggered the smoke alarm, not in our apartment, but in the entire building. I'm
Ooh.
sorry. And so I have a little bit of a phobia of that. So if I smell something burning, then I
Mhm.
intervene because I don't want to get there.
Right.
But otherwise, let them be.
Yeah.
And the other thing I have to say is that there can be joy. I'm weighing my words. There can be joy in cleaning up as well.
Mm.
Because one of the big reasons why I'll say this for moms, moms don't want other people in the kitchen often is that fear that other people will make a mess and then we'll have to clean it up and it won't be exactly like we want the kitchen to be. And sometimes I get up in the morning and my husband takes care of everything, every food that's doled out after dinner. It's his, like, mom is responsible for dinner. And after dinner, you're on your own, ask your dad, right? So he serves the bedtime snack and all those things. And sometimes I get in the kitchen in the morning and let's say there's a few dishes that haven't been put away from bedtime snack. And sometimes I admit I feel anger, bitterness,
Mhm.
negative feelings about it. But there's also a joy to be found in the practice of washing dishes. There's
Mm.
even like Buddhist prayers, little phrases you can say that they have been practicing about, the finding the gratitude in washing the dishes. And that can be a moment of mindfulness. Of course, if it's a whole kitchen of dirty dishes, sticky, greasy. Well, that sucks. But the good news is that if you're cooking mostly plants, it's not bad at all. And
Mhm.
there's no like salmonella and E. coli
Right.
lurking in your cutting board. And that is a game changer for a lot of people. That's a benefit of going vegan I had not anticipated. But it's like, wow, doing the dishes is great. And so we have to also embrace those menial domestic tasks there.
Mhm.
And while if I'm not doing the dishes, what am I doing? Maybe I'm scrolling Facebook.
Right.
Like, which is better, really?
Mhm.
Like, for my mental health and for the good of the planet.
Yeah.
Scrolling Facebook, by the way, which also has a significant environmental footprint that we never think about. So I don't know. I mean, I won't go do the dishes at your house. Um, but at my
Right.
house, yeah, I'm okay with that.
Yeah. Yeah, I like that. Because I too have those moments of like, why are the dishes in the sink?" And we don't have children. It's just the two of us. Well, the cats, their bowls end up in the sink.
Yeah.
right? So somebody
And they
has to
never
wash.
clean them up.
They don't. Like, come on, guys, get some thumbs and get on these dishes.
They don't
Uh,
like water. That's their excuse.
exactly.
They could lick them clean, maybe.
Right. Like, look, mom, it's done.
That's your problem.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, I love it. Another thing that you mentioned in the book about making this process joyful is music,
Oh, yes.
finding that playlist.
Totally, totally.
Yeah.
Or I mean, my thing is music. I love in the book I mention, sometimes in extreme circumstances, I will have to put on the soundtrack from the movie Rocky, da 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 da, or some people it might be like Chariots of Fire, do
Mm,
do 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 do. But some people will have different tastes in music, but I know also there's some people that have a thing for like true crime podcasts. That's a
mm,
thing apparently. I don't know anything about it, but it's kind of a guilty pleasure. They maybe don't get to listen to those things. Well,
mm.
only listen to that when you're cooking. And by the way, get a pair of wireless
Yes.
earphones. That will be a lot easier if other it makes it easier to listen to. I have to say though, part of the mindfulness, there's a tension there. And when I was having early readers look at the book, somebody got a little bit tense about my chapter on mindful cooking, where I say keep devices, phones, and stuff out of the kitchen. And she said, "Yeah, but over there you're saying listen to music and true crime podcasts." And yes, there is a tension there. I come from a running background, and in running, there is a debate that's lasted for a long time about whether or not you should listen to music while you're running. And
Mm,
apparently, for beginners, it's good to listen to music while you're running because it keeps you going. It allows you to ignore the pain a little bit more. Not that it's painful to run at all, but once in a while it's uncomfortable. And so the music takes your mind away from the discomfort. But they were saying for people who are more like elite runners, music actually prevents them
mm,
from pushing their limits. And there's a similar, not exactly the same, but there's a similar tension in cooking, where at some point focusing your attention on cooking is also very valuable, and things you
mhm.
can learn about the sounds that cooking
Yes.
makes. And I can hear my skillet make
Mhm.
certain sounds. I can tell. I don't even consciously know those things. I wouldn't be able to explain it, but I know that the tofu makes the tofu. I love tofu. Tofu makes a certain sound. I love hummus too. I love
Mhm.
tofu. The tofu makes a certain sound when it's about ready in the
Mm,
skillet, and the things I blend in the blender have a different noise to them when they reach the right consistency and stuff like that. So it's good to practice both,
mhm.
having those moments where just to get started, if you have a hard time getting started cooking, yes, pull the big guns and the best playlist you can and whatever music it is that you need, put it on loud and
Mhm.
enjoy yourself. But with time, I think there's value also in having completely focused time on the action of cooking. And it's easier if you don't have a 2-year-old. I'll leave it at that.
Right. I love the idea of putting on like a song that makes me want to dance or just really brings up the energy as I walk into the kitchen, almost like it's my entrance music, like a
Yeah, yeah.
WWE wrestler, and then quiet.
Totally.
I
Absolutely.
find uh, cooking to be so meditative, and it's not always right. We all have those tough moments in the kitchen where we're frustrated by whatever's happening, but I have I started, I have yet to finish. I started the plant-based pro course through Ruby online,
Wow, that's
and
cool.
I have learned so much, especially things like sounds of the skillet, how to like use that as a way to understand where you're at in your cooking process. And in those moments where I was either chopping vegetables, getting my mise en place ready, or if I was like stirring, like I made a vegan carbonara sauce, and it was so creamy. And just the act of stirring it and then stirring the pasta into it, that feel, and just I was just so lost in it. I couldn't hear anything around me.
That's beautiful.
It's
I
such
love
a
that.
yeah, it's so
And
wonderful.
and something I like to remind people to do is taste and adjust seasoning.
Yes.
And it's not just I was giving a cooking clinic the other day that's a kind of a private cooking class, but we don't focus on making things pretty. We focus on cooking from what you have.
Mhm.
And this client was cooking with tofu for pretty much the first time, tofu again. And we chopped the tofu into dice and I told her, have a bite. She was like, what? I was like, is it okay? Like, yeah, yeah, it's fine.
Yeah.
There's no salmonella in your tofu. But she had never thought, the thought never crossed her mind that you could eat raw tofu. But
Mhm.
I think there's great value in putting the food in your mouth as you go to get a feel for what those things taste. And that's also part of the mindfulness practice, having awareness of all those different ingredients so that when you're finished and you taste the food, if there's something you don't like, you can trace back, okay, I did this, I did that. Because sometimes if I'm cooking, I'm really busy Friday night, listening to the music really loud, talking to my mom at the same time. And then it turns out to be, let's say, really good. And
Mhm.
my husband says, oh, this is amazing. What did you do? I don't know.
Aw.
No idea. And last night, quite the opposite. I was in one of those moods for multiple reasons. And it was a stressful day. I was rushing. I was going to a meeting. I was making a meal that I shouldn't have been making in the circumstances, but I was doing it. And I was like, okay, it needs something creamy in the sauce. I don't have time to do the blender thing. So I'll just add a bit of coconut milk. I opened the can of coconut milk. I shook it before I opened it. And there was a little bit of coconut floating on top, like kind of shreds on top. And I
Mm.
was like, oh, it didn't mix properly, but whatever. I don't have time for that. I poured half the coconut milk can into my dish and it was coconut water.
Oh.
Like there was no coconut milk whatsoever in that can. I have no idea what happened. Don't buy that brand again. But that's the way it was. And thankfully, it was not like I was really afraid it would be spoiled.
Mhm.
Um, Something that it would smell bad, whatever, but it was okay. But I wasn't paying attention to what I was doing.
Yeah.
If I had stopped, normally the right thing to do would have been to stop and taste the coconut
Yeah.
milk, and oh, I would have noticed that it was not at all. It turned out okay. Dinner was fine
Mhm.
and it was tasty. It didn't look really good, but it hit the spot and I was able to go to my meeting.
Mhm.
But integrating that tasting all along the way allows us to learn so much about what we're doing, a lot more than following the recipe with your nose on the paper.
Mhm. I will get to that in a second because I do wanna talk about recipes and your feelings around those. Um, but before we get there, what about those nights where, like you were just saying, you're stressed, you're, rushed for time. I've had those nights where I, one, don't feel like I want to cook. I know I've got something else to do later on. I'm feeling stressed. Maybe I'm angry about something that happened that day. And I will make dinner and it'll be a dish I've made countless times. And it just comes out terribly. And even
Oh,
if I've been paying attention, my husband will say, you did not make this with love tonight. I can taste the hate in this dish.
ouch.
But he's right. So, do you have any, because I really hope I'm not the only person who feels this way sometimes.
You are the only person on earth. I've never heard about this before.
Do you have any suggestions or a way to simplify? Maybe there's like a go-to simple thing we can do in those moments where we're hate cooking and we still want to feel nourished and we still want to eat something good.
Hmm. That is a beautiful question. And I know it definitely is part of life for a lot of people. I would go back to that idea of putting on the song
Mm,
or perhaps even having a prayer.
mm,
My colleague George Cow talks of an energy reboot where whenever he works, he's whenever he changes tasks or when he loses focus, having that moment of a deep breath
mm,
and remembering you're being taken care of and it's going to be okay, and having that stop, right? And something I need to mention is that in the title of the book, Flow in the Kitchen: Practices for Healthy Stress-Free Vegan Cooking, There's a friend of mine that said, cut out practice from there. It sounds whatever, old fashioned or something. And the choice of the word practice was very intentional because the only way to make this whole thing work and work consistently is to practice.
Mm,
And by practice, I mean practice every day, pretty
yeah.
much every day. And when we practice, we build muscles. It's like doing push ups.
Mm.
It's like meditation where you meditate once, once a year, I meditate for 3 hours. I can tell you that in 51 and a half weeks, that the effects of that meditation will be very little. You should have spent 5 minutes a day instead. And
Yeah.
that would have allowed you to see your mind drifting in that bad place of
Mhm.
hating cooking and everything else in the world. So when you see yourself going there, you can catch yourself,
Mm,
take a breath. You're taken care of. It's okay. You have food here. You're pretty goddamn lucky to have food because a lot of people don't have food. Mom
yeah.
said, remember the little people in Africa that don't have dinner? You should finish your plate. That's not what I'm talking about. Having gratitude for all the people that had to get along for those ingredients to end up on our table. Like, that's miraculous on this
Yeah.
planet where we often focus on everything that's going badly, right? Having that little stop moment and resetting. Now, the practical aspect of this is also to have a short repertoire of three, four, five things you can do lickety split without
Mhm.
thinking too much. That in those moments where you recognize yourself as falling into that trap,
Yeah.
where you give yourself grace and instead of picking up the phone to order pizza, you open the cabinet to grab a pack of pasta or whatever shortcut
Mhm.
dinner that you're thinking about, and you can do one of those. It will just take a few minutes. It will not be the most nutritious, tastiest, best looking dish of your life, but it will be far better than the alternative and it will bring you some satisfaction and again empowerment.
Yeah.
So
Oh,
having that at your fingertips is, I think, the
that's
second half of the equation.
yeah. Thank you. That is very helpful to me for sure. And even as you were saying that with the pasta, like even something simple like that, make sure you've got, some boxes of pasta and even jarred sauce, right? If you don't have it
That's fine.
frozen. But do you have leftover spinach in the fridge? Just why not throw it in
Throw
it?
it in.
And then there's a little bit more nutrients in that dish. So even, as you were calming me down from my, imagined scenario, I was able to even think what's a simple thing with no effort. You take the spinach out of the fridge and dump it into the pot as the pasta is just about done, right? And you drain it all together
Exactly.
and dump
Done.
in the sauce, and there you go.
Right. Chop a head of broccoli, throw it in the cooking water at the same
Yeah.
time. And then my husband would go like, yeah, but in high school we did this experiment and we found out that broccoli, if it's cooked in like boiling water, has less vitamins than if you steam it. So bleeping what? Like I'm having broccoli, and actually, apparently, it's only the equivalent of like one piece of broccoli more that you need to eat
Oh, okay.
with your dinner to make up for the lost, you know, phytonutrients that you've
Mhm.
lost in the boiling water. So what? Just it's going to be way better anyway. So keep
Yeah.
it simple.
And like a broccoli that has lost a little bit of its nutrients is better than no broccoli.
Oh yeah, that's for sure. That's for sure.
So let's talk about recipes. Tell me your thoughts on recipes.
Where do you want to start? I admit that a lot of what is in the book comes from my own feelings of inadequacy
Mm,
over the past or the first 4 years, perhaps, of my little online business as I was looking for my space in this whole thing. If you call yourself, let's take a shortcut, a vegan blogger, what do? You create vegan recipes and you put them on the internet. Because you know what? People go on the internet to Google recipes, and that's how vegan bloggers can make money because they can put ads on their website. And people that whoever has the top ranking recipe for vegan mac and cheese is probably making a few thousands of dollars per month
mm,
on the ads from that recipe, but they're getting tens of thousands of hits on that webpage, right? That's the game in vegan blogging. And from the get-go, I did not want to put ads on my website, but I still wanted people to come to my website, right?
Yeah.
Because my lights are kept on by the services I offer. I have a meal planning service. I do those cooking clinics that I was mentioning. So I want people to know about me, right? But how am I going to bring them in? Because people Google recipes. And that's a struggle that I've had personally. Am I going to be putting out recipes? And I spent quite a bit of time learning about how to put out attractive vegan food content online. And what I discovered just flabbergasted me, among other things, how much food styling, food photography, the whole art of making those recipes look appealing. And then there's the whole aspect of SEO, search engine optimization, and all that's happening in the background. I was like, that's not me. That's not what I want to do. What I'm really trying to say is that cooking is an act of love, is
Mm,
love in action. And I want people to cook more food at home. I don't want them to be staring at recipes, trying to reproduce what they see, because number one, those pictures, they're doctored, not
right.
in a Photoshop necessarily kind of way, though that's part of the equation, but also the pictures are made to make you look. There's
Mhm,
that pop song right now that my daughter loves. I made you look, but there's a manipulation in there that I'm not comfortable with. I'm happy that there's food bloggers coming up with novel ways of making amazing vegan food. It looks great, but it's not something I can do on a Wednesday when I feel the way you were talking about
mhm,
a minute ago, right?
yeah.
And then if I don't know how to cook at all, and I Google and I find this whatever vegan mac and cheese recipe that I try to follow, it will not look like the picture. I will spend half the time trying to sort the thing out. I will not feel satisfied. I will not feel good about myself. It's kind of like watching porn for sex ed,
Mm,
watching food porn, those videos, those pictures on Instagram, on Pinterest for cooking education. No, I don't mean to become a chef. I think to become a chef, there's definitely a cut above that you need to get into, but to feed yourself and your family really good food in real life circumstances, I don't think recipes are all that useful, not the kinds of recipes that we see on the
mhm.
internet right now. And make an act of rebellion against them. And I struggle now to use recipes even because I'm like, I'd rather just wing it. And as I said, and I don't exactly wing things because I do follow my own meal plans and I've written 260 recipes that are in there, but I don't follow those recipes even anymore. I look at the title. Sometimes I look at the ingredients to make sure I don't forget important things in the shopping list. And then I kind of do whatever with those, but it always follows the same, more or less the same grammar. And once you
Mhm,
know the grammar, you don't need to look at recipes on a Wednesday night anymore.
right. Yeah. And in your book too, it's so I'll say, like, I typically have followed recipes, but I have tried also to trust my gut, to just walk into the pantry, open the fridge, look at what I have, and think about what can go together in the time and, space or whatever that I have. But your book has inspired me even further to really start to trust my intuition in the kitchen. And I mean, I do have a good background of knowledge of food, self-taught, not, formal schooling or anything. So I also feel like I understand food, which I think helps that confidence. But even without that, the information in your book about, ways to make, rice, like boiling it like pasta, that was
Yes,
such a game changer for me. I first heard about that from Dr. Neil Barnard, and so
right,
I've been doing that for a couple of years now because every time I tried to make rice in a pot, I don't know, my tops I don't have super fancy, pots. My tops don't fit so tightly, so they're always
right.
bubbling over. What a mess. Rice would
S-
always burn.
Steam leaving the pot, so your rice would
Yep.
be too dry, or you put too
Yeah.
much water and then it's sticky, or somebody is
Mhm.
throwing up somewhere and you have to go help them out and you come back and your rice is burnt. Who
Yeah.
needs that?
No one. No one. But, I just opened because I was kind of flipping through as I was talking to see what came to me as I was and I opened to, a section where you're talking about beans, and you say, "Accepting life with minor imperfections is what makes the practice of cooking daily meals at home from whole foods sustainable." And I love how that applies to everything. And we can even take it outside of the kitchen too. But
Yes.
what a solid reminder of just like when you start to feel overwhelmed by, cooking or really anything, like it's okay. And it's not
There's
going to be
not a
perfect.
whole lot that can go really wrong in the
Yeah,
kitchen, and
right.
that's something to remember. I think if you put too much salt, you can ruin a dish.
Mhm,
I have people apparently call that a salt pig. I have this container with salt in it, and I take pinches out of it instead
mhm,
of a salt shaker.
mhm.
And if I drop the salt pig in the dish by accident, and I take a lot of precautions for that not to happen, but if I did, it would certainly ruin dinner. And then I would call 8730001, which is the name of the pizza across the street, if I needed to feed other people and I had no time and no bread to make toast.
Mhm.
It's too much salt, too much heat. If it's
Mm.
like chili peppers
Oh,
or
yeah.
heat from the stove, like burning stuff, that will also possibly ruin your dish. And it's sad, and you've lost ingredients and time, and there's a bit of grieving involved. Those are the two things. But other than that, like it might look weird, it might taste funny, but it's rarely going to be inedible.
Right.
And that's also, I think, a little bit of an upside of vegan cooking, because I've certainly had, when I was a meat eater, some like really ruined dinners.
Mhm.
But that doesn't happen quite so often. Maybe my standards have lowered, um, but I don't think so. I'm still kind of a discerning eater. I wouldn't call myself picky, but sometimes it's like, well, no, this is not great. Like my dinner last night with the coconut water, that was not certainly not perfect and not what I envisioned. And I
Mhm.
think that's the key, right? I had this idea in my mind that it would look like this, and then it didn't look like that, and I was disappointed. Whereas my husband, having no idea that there was supposed to be coconut milk, and there was like, "Oh, this is good." So I think we have to remember those things. This said, it's not about throwing ingredients in any random order. I mean, people can do that and innovate and discover new ways of cooking. But there are, in the Western canon of cooking, and even it applies also to Indian cooking and other ways, there's kind of always the same
Mhm.
steps that happen almost always in the same order. And if you follow those steps, there's a lot of variations you can bring in. And then it was going to be okay.
Yeah.
you know? And so, yeah, at the end of the book, I don't want to go into details, but there's explanations about how to do the major standard dishes, I call them, of Western standard vegan healthy cooking, stir fries, soups, and stews, which are extremely similar,
Mhm.
and include things like curries and chilies. And once you get the basics, and I have a chapter on pizza, pizza you can do at home, and that is the ultimate empowering vehicle. So
Yeah.
I made my own pizza, I'm cool. So that's really great. But so once you understand the general idea, then you can repeat it some other way. And there's different styles of learning. Some people will learn by doing a lot of different recipes of the same thing, and then they will start to substitute and feel more empowered. But I think the focus has been too far on individual recipes and not enough on general principles.
Yeah.
So once you get a little bit deeper into the principles, you can become a lot more um, comfortable doing substitutions, taking shortcuts,
Yeah.
cutting out ingredients, and making the dishes your own based on what you want and what you have as well, to reduce food waste and to increase nutrition at every meal.
Mhm. Yeah. Brigitte, thank you. This
My pleasure.
this has been wonderful. I have one more question for you.
Okay.
Can you tell us about either your favorite hummus or your favorite way to eat hummus?
my Well, in truth, my favorite way to eat hummus is with a spoon. But for the
Hand
purposes
raised.
Yes, for the purposes of sounding like civilized person here. I think going back to your question earlier about, you walk in the kitchen and what am I going to do? So if that's my case, pasta is our go-to. We're very active people. My husband and I, we do a lot of cardiovascular exercise. We run, we cycle. Pasta is always welcome. We're always carbo loading. And so I would say, and my kids love pasta. So cooking a package of pasta, if available, throw in the broccoli.
Mhm.
Just before draining the water, scoop out about a cup of the cooking water. And so that's starchy, milky water kind of
Mhm.
thing. Dump the pasta, throw it back in the pot as soon as possible. If you didn't have the broccoli, you can throw in arugula, spinach, baby kale. They will all wilt.
Mhm.
And so there's always hummus in the fridge. So add a really big scoop. How much? I don't know, like half a cup, let's say, or a little more of hummus into the pot, a little bit of the cooking water, give it a good stir, put the lid on. The heat should be turned off
Mhm.
under the pot so it doesn't scorch the bottom, because at that stage there's no more water or
Right.
very little water in the pot. But it creates, you were talking about a carbonara earlier.
Mhm.
It really creates kind of an Alfredo carbonara
Ooh.
feel, but without as much oil and fat as a
Mhm.
conventional carbonara, obviously. So, but you have the creaminess and you have a little bit of vague smokiness. I guess you could use like a couple drops of liquid smoke. I've never tried that. Not necessary, no. And it's my favorite thing to eat, uh, almost completely, aside from maybe noodles with the peanut sauce. But
Okay.
I just love that. It's quick. It's got a lot of nutrition in it, and it hits the spot for me. So glory to the hummus. I love hummus. Thank you
Yes,
for saving so
agreed.
many dinners, so many evenings.
It really does, when you're really strapped or stressed out, or you dumped the salt into the pan. Just
Plan
some
B.
crackers and a tub of hummus or a spoon, like you said. No shame here. Just buy the spoonful.
Absolutely. And ideally, you know what? Ideally, the hummus would be homemade. That's great. Okay. But
Right.
the truth of life is that if I only have 90 minutes for a batch cooking session in a week, hummus is probably not the thing I'm going to do. Yes, the option from the store has more oil than the one I would make at home, blah, blah, blah. Okay, sure. But store-bought hummus, it's always vegan,
Mhm.
and it's delicious. So
Yeah,
just use it.
exactly. Exactly. Brigitte, thank you. This has been wonderful. So many eye-opening comments and thoughts and just really helpful tips for the listeners and for me, selfishly. Um, so I am so grateful that you were able to join me tonight. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me. I look forward to having you visit my vegan family kitchen. That'll be fun.
Yeah, I can't wait. What's your favorite moment from this episode? Your favorite quote? An aha you had while listening? Reach out and let me know. Are you excited to pick up Brigitte's book? Want to get in touch with her and check out her offerings? Visit Brigitte's website, veganfamilykitchen.com, and sign up for her free meal planner. Follow her at Vegan Family Kitchen on Instagram and Facebook. Find her book on Amazon. Links to get in touch with Brigitte and to order her book can be found in the show notes. I hope you found this episode helpful and inspiring. Please subscribe to the podcast so you never miss an episode. And if you're loving it, give Did You Bring the Hummus a 5-star rating. It's an easy way to keep supporting the show. You're also invited to join my free private Facebook group for fans of the show. You can find the link in the show notes. How's Veganuary going for you? When you reach out with your favorite moment from this episode, let me know how it's going. And by the way, there's still a couple of calls left in January. If you'd like to jump into the group now, I'd be happy to have you. Follow me on Facebook and Instagram at Did You Bring the Hummus, and visit my website, didyouBringTheHummus.com, for more information about me, updates on what I'm working on, new podcast episodes, and all things vegan. Finally, I would love to hear from you. What do you need help with? Is there a topic you want to hear covered on a future episode? DM me on Instagram or send me an email at didyouBringTheHummus@gmail.com. Thanks for listening.